Good afternoon, everyone. It's a huge responsibility on the panel to make the panel discussion interesting after Thurston's session. And I'm sure everyone is enticed by the display of technology which is used for the incident notification and the usage by the members. So our panel talks about the resilience, and the conference itself is supply chain resilience and sustainability. So resilience is the talk of the town. Simply put, resilience is the ability of the organization to sustain, withstand, and respond to any disruption which might cause harm, damage to the assets, or simply impact the ability to operate. Having said this, I think resilience as a program itself is a very structured program which typically combines or integrates the ability on the ground to respond, or tactical decision making through the crisis management, or business strategic direction through the business continuity. So it is also a capability builder within the organization, as it changes the mindset. It collaborates, it drives the awareness, as well as it also creates the agile leadership, which is very important for decisive decision making before, during, and after the crisis. We have seen that through the many sessions, that how the resilience is not only a differentiator, but the competitive edge for all the businesses. As the risk spectrum is widening, I think this will definitely be the must for every business to structure this capability as essential for the business. And to talk on this today, we have a very dynamic and diversified panel, which comprises of business in the form of Rajesh, who works for Johnson Matthey. They manage the supply chain of precious metals. We have Joanne, who works for the leading technology company Argus. And we have Firoze, who works for Delhivery, which is one of the biggest supply chain companies in India. So within them, I just checked, they have 70 years of corporate experience in resilience building. So please give a big hand to the very dynamic panel here. Thank you for joining, Firoze, Rajesh, and Joanne. So while we talk about building resilience, and just taking a clue from Thurston's sessions on technology, and as Joanne works for technology, and they support many businesses in building technology capabilities in supply chain. I would like to ask Joanne, what is your take on best practices or typical guidelines for building up resilience in the supply chain through technology?
Okay. From the perspective of land transport company, I will focus on what I can do to build civilians. One example is to fortify the prime mover and the container against theft and hijacking. If the access were enhanced with safety and security technologies, in the event of any disruption like landslide or flooding in my prime route, at least I can use an alternative route without worry, because there is a technology in place. And I have much less risk in this case because technology, and my customers can still get the delivery on time. And another example which is quite common to embrace, which is transport management solutions. With such solutions, you can invite other third-party transport providers adhering to TAPA TSR standards to join in providing the transport services. These shared services, while it can be an ad hoc basis, but work on the same governance platform to ensure secure and safe deliveries.
Thank you, Joanne. As Joanne mentioned about technology standards and TSR, and TSR is of course a TAPA standard. So I would like to come to Rajesh. You have worked for many companies. You have built up security and resilience programs. And now you secure the precious metal supply chain. So as we talk about technology as well as TSR or other standards of TAPA, in context of building resilience, how do you think, in your opinion, these standards help in building the resilience framework, which is kind of value add to the organizations?
Thank you, Ratnakar. Am I audible? I think when it comes to supply chain resilience, it cannot be an isolated subject for any organization. Because we are talking about an ecosystem wherein we have a warehouse service provider, we have a trucking service provider, we have a ground handlers, we have our own team, both security and the supply chain, and therefore everyone needs to talk a common language. What TAPA does to us, provide that common language. So for example, when we go for a bidding, let's say we intend to have a warehouse in some part of Asia, we make sure that the TAPA standard are part of our bidding process. And anyone and everyone who is applying for that bid first need to adhere, complement, and get themselves certified to bid for that particular piece of business. Even after the bidding, when we go for the agreement with the successful bidder, again, the TAPA standard are the integral part of our agreements. And it makes our life much easier because then we have a common language in which we will talk about, right? I don't have to invent terminologies and the expectation because these are already very clearly laid out. Internally, when we talk about, we obviously deal in precious metal. We have a much higher, risk. We are, targeted globally. We have number of incidents, right from China to India to South Africa, UK, US. And this standard gives us an opportunity that we can go and basically build in those systems in our global program and also internally educate our supply chain team. One of the gaps which we have found initially when we started working is while the security team is very well familiar with these standards and want to drive that, the supply chain, the business side of the team is not aligned with that because they were not trained, they were not aligned in a way that they could not have the exposure to those standards. So not only the internal security team, but the internal supply chain team, the procurement team, the finance team were briefed about these standards and which basically helps them to understand what we are talking about in a much organized and in a global standard perspective. Yeah, that's how it is.
Thank you, Rajesh. So a good point brought out by Rajesh that standardization of various contracts, partners, definitely gets big understanding on the capability that they have. So as Rajesh does it for his company and their partners, I would like to come to Firoze now. Firoze and Delhivery, they partner with many companies in India. They enable their other supply chains. And obviously, there's one of the company which is already listed in India. So they have that capability. They have built those internal capabilities. And so my question to Firoze is that while they build the internal capabilities within the organization and make it resilient, they also work through many partners and vendors yourself. So while you comply, you provide the compliance, standard compliance certificates to companies like Rajesh and other clients, how do you ensure that your own vendors and partners also have robust, resilient programs in place so that they are resilient, they are making you resilient, and in a way you are making other clients resilient?
Sure. Thank you very much. First of all, Delhivery, Flipkart is one of our large clients. We do a lot of shipments for Flipkart. So it feels really nice to share the dais here with Ratnakar. And thanks, Tony, for inviting me for this event. Let me try and answer the question, Ratnakar, by first looking at from the larger perspective. See, the cost of logistics in India, versus the gross domestic product versus the GDP is about 13.5%. The rest of the world, similar percentage is around 5, 6, 7%. So we really have a lot of room to improve, whether it's the trucking, whether it's the warehousing, whether it's the end-to-end supply chain itself. If you see over the last 5, 10 years, the scenario has really changed in India. A lot of startups have come up, like Delhivery. We started from absolutely zero, maybe 10 years back. And today we are one of the largest companies in this domain. So how it's been possible to do something like 2.5 million, when you're doing something like 2.5 million packages a day with 80,000 people, 4,400 warehouses, and something like $5-6 million in cash, which you are collecting from various COD, cash on delivery, to the various consignees all across India. So that's not really possible unless each and every stakeholder is involved in the whole process. So whether it is our board level, whether it's our vendors, our clients, things like we do it right from the beginning. Like when we buy our Volvo trucks, they are already fitted with the ADAS, with all the other necessary systems which is required to be fully TAPA compliant. So once we've done that, we've already had the necessary machinery at the input stage itself. Same thing goes with our warehouse vendors. So now with the various standards which we've made, each and every warehouse of a certain size, because most of our centers are fully automatic sortation centers. Just by reading the barcode, the packets get moved across conveyor lines and get into bags, and the bags have to find the respective truck at the respective docks. So considering this sort of scenario, what we've done is that across the 80,000 people, the various manpower vendors, the various trucking vendors, the various other warehousing suppliers, so we work with them to be able to provide a standard uniform service across the company so that we will then be able to supply the same to our clients, whether it's Flipkart, Amazon, and many other companies to whom we service. So the most important thing is to be able to work contracts with the various suppliers with the help of commercial, so that there could be a slight percentage upside on the total, the cost of the contract, because of having a given quality level and a service level inputted into the contract, and but thereby getting a service by which you'll be able to give a resilient and reliable service. So that's probably the most important aspect of logistics. Thanks.
Thank you, Firoze. Massive supply chain that Firoze operates, as well as good takeaways from his talk about building up the complete ecosystem capability. And the pertinent point to also note is also he talked about cost. So resilience is a capability built up through people, process, and technology, and all of them talked about it. So my next question is to all of them. As we drive that cost discussions through, say, boardrooms or leadership meeting rooms, how you leverage the impact or the value add created through the resilience structures vis-a-vis that cost discussion? How you influence the leadership to continuously keep building and improving on the resilience structures?
Right. So I give a very simple example. As you already aware, we are a company which deals in precious metal. We manufacture anything and everything which is based on the precious metal, which includes platinum, palladium, rhodium, and some part of gold. That means we are talking about products which is favorite for the criminals. And they know when they, see Johnson Matthey, they assume that this must be some precious thing inside that cargo. Now we have an internal supply chain standard, wherein we have decided that, okay, if you want to ship, let's say, 1 million, you need to have these control in place. If you want to ship 2 million kind of cargo, then you go to the next level, and therefore you need to have these controls. what we have built in with the help of TAPA standard, that okay, if you are using a TAPA standard truck, then your limit goes from 1 million to 3 million straight away. And thereby, you are saving a cost for the company. You'll probably be paying 10% or 20% premium to the TAPA standard trucking, but at the same time, you can basically load 3 times of the product you were loading in a non-TAPA standard. Just a very simple example which brought in a significant value to the organization as well as the resiliency. Yep.
Thank you, Rajesh. Firoze, you would like to add?
Sure. See, basically, I mean, you have an orange and you want more juice out of it. It's as simple as that. So how do you do it? You've got to deliver better service level, better service quality. Now, you see, olden times we used to think something which is cheap is probably not the right way. But believe me, as far as delivery is concerned, what we've done is that we take a conscious decision with our management team and all the people that we should be the lowest cost transporter across the country. Now, lowest cost, but added with that is that everything has to move as per time. Everything has to be delivered as per the promised date of delivery. Everything has to be picked up based on the slots and others given by the various companies. So I think it's the cheapest. Earlier we used to think probably would be the worst supplier, but with the change of innovative thinking and innovative functioning, looking at how to standardize your supply chain, looking at using standards, imbibing it into the culture of the organization, timeliness, time of delivery and things like that. Finally, what we have seen is that you basically lower your cost per ton, cost per kg.
Value over the time. Yeah. Joanne, you would like to add something?
I think in my previous presentation sharing, already, if you all can recall, I think with the TNT greatest example, do they remember the cost when the ROI is mind-blowing? So I don't need to say much.
Okay, thank you. So I think very now pertinent points brought in by the panel. I think the resilience as a strategic structures is developing that to people, process, technology perspective. Has different organizations have different maturity models because it's a continuous journey. And as every organization definitely strives for it, it will take time. So for the audience from your side, as we start either building up the resilience program or we keep improving on the resilience program, what could be top 3 priorities from your perspective?
Sure. See, more and more people are moving for end-to-end supply chain understanding, which means that they want to work with a company which can do end-to-end, which can do the air part, the sea part, the land part, and finally delivering it to the customer. So end-to-end supply chain management is totally different from just doing trucking. Now, end-to-end, why it becomes more complex? Because the weakest link in the chain is what determines the total speed. So this makes it much more complex because you have trucking, you have warehousing, whichever is the slowest thing will determine the speed of your network. So it's very important that you have proper standards and resilience so that your whole network moves at a given speed and you are able to deliver goods to your customers.
Thanks, Bruce.
I think from the perspective of high-risk cargo and a company which deals into our kind of product wherein there is already a constraint, lot of constraint because our raw material is not off the shelf, right? Our raw material does not come as a primary, no miner digs metal. It is byproduct of other, minerals which got digged. And therefore, efficiency is a very important part for us in terms of, our supply chain resilience. Cost is important, will remain important, but I think there is a there is a common understanding and acceptance that cost is important, but it's not the only important factor. And I think that opens various doors of standardization, acceptance of, higher cost because we are asking for the standardization. So driving the standardization, driving the efficiency is the key for becoming more and more resilient. And I think last is what kind of BCP plan you have. Ultimately, when the shit hits the fence, how do you respond to those things? I think that will test how you prepared yourself for those kind of events, because those will happen, right?
Absolutely. Yes, Joanne, anything?
This is the top 3 priorities.
Top 3 priorities,
Okay.
yes.
So, in my opinions, having dealt with many transport company, perhaps looking in the top 3 priorities should be the safety and security of the assets, especially during deliveries. If there is hijack or an accident, there will be a very negative business impact to the company, and it will be very troublesome. And the company will face with business disruption, government investigation, liabilities and claims, insurance compliance requirements. It will be seriously said it involves with a loss of life. The company will benefit tremendously if they mitigate to minimum risk. And also having trained, motivated, and disciplined drivers. Many transport companies cannot expand their business effectively outside the sphere to influence due to the risk if they're not having sufficient trained drivers. So this is quite important if they want to expand the business. And constant and increment improvement. It may involve large capital costs in building new warehouse, acquiring new assets. It should also be spending smaller investment into new technologies to enhance the company's service qualities on time and safe, secure delivery. So as an example, there are many aftermarkets like ADAS, what Firoze mentioned, which provide autonomous driving level 1 assistance as lane keeping, safe distance keeping, eye closing, smoking detection, distraction. They are tremendous benefits for keeping each driver safe on the road, and they are quite affordable nowadays. And another example is analyzing all the data, truck driver behavior, deliveries, kilometers. Example, using AI to analyze all this data coming into the back end for business QHSE improvements. I'm sure the priorities mentioned shall lead to a better P&L and greater revenue and cash, which are important values for all business.
Thank you, Joanne, and, for those fabulous insights. So, as we discussed during the panel discussion, resilience will be resilience as a program would always be a strategic integrator. It will enhance the collaboration within the organization. It will enhance the partnering outside the organization and also build up the ecosystem, as Firoze has already mentioned. It will have the evolving journey for all the different organizations in terms of developing capabilities, in terms of people, process, and technologies. It would, of course, have a cost, but panel has brought out nicely how cost discussion can be negotiated. The big one which comes to my mind on the resilient part is any resilient organization would potentially insulate itself from the reputation as well as brand risk as a damage. If an organization is resilient, they are able to respond to certain disruptions. Obviously, reputation definitely goes high, vis-a-vis the other way around. So I would like to thank the panel for their valuable insights, and they're always available for answering any questions that you have. Are we going to get questions on the screen? Anyone?
Yep, I believe that we're going to have the questions posted on the screen. Just give us a few seconds.
As Rajesh talked about efficiency as part of top 3 priorities, we are one of the efficient panels completing discussion within the time and asking for the questions on the screen. Yeah, anything else? Firoze, please add. Yeah.
One of the very important aspects is network engineering. See, when you're dealing with something like 4,000, 5,000 warehouses and 80,000 people, 7,000 trucks, the way you engineer the network itself is a very critical tool which will determine your cost and speed. There is a balancing in deciding the size of the warehouse, deciding the location of the warehouse, because if you have it in the middle of the city, like the heart of New York or Manhattan, it's just too costly. You keep it too far away, the cost of moving the goods becomes too much. So network engineering as a tool itself for cost optimization is a very critical aspect, which can be developed using a lot of tech and keep improving it over time using AI.
Absolutely. Thanks, Firoze, for that. So do we have questions or shall we conclude?
Do we have questions? If not, we can just do the manual way. Any questions from the floor? I'll pass the mic to y'all. You all seem very scared. Huh? Okay, meanwhile, let me ask a personal question. So, Mr. Ratnakar, I checked your LinkedIn. You're ex-Indian Army.
Yes.
See, that's the reason why no one asks question, all scared. Correct. Because the way you said absolutely, I say, wait, this absolutely sounds different. There's a certain level of firmness to it. This is ex-Indian Army.
I should have said yes, sir.
Yes, yes. And Dr. Firoze, I checked your LinkedIn, you're ex-Indian police officer. There you go. And he wrote on his LinkedIn, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Firoze, 60 major arrests in 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
Give him a big hand, ladies and gentlemen.
They have kept this world a safer place. So I just want to let you all know, if any of you all are, attending this conference to commit certain fraud in supply chain, don't forget both of them. They will get you all, right? Just be careful. But nice to see. That's the thing I like about conference, right? You get to meet people from different backgrounds, right? Okay, do we have the questions? Yes, we have. I believe we can take two or three questions. Yep, so the questions are on the board. So let's go with the first one. How often does the company refresh its assessment of the top risk? And what are the parameters to set this frequency?
See, we have the annual sale every year, basically just before Diwali. So that's the time when the sale happens. And believe me, every year we take a decision to position some warehouses, change some warehouses. And the next year, believe me, because of the kind of growth that we see or the changes in the dynamics of the clients or the changes in type of packages, the size of packages, the weights of packages, the design of packages, we finally have to again change many of the warehouses. So reassessment is part of constant dynamic approach which should be done on just a regular basis. It can't be that you've chosen a warehouse and it will last you forever.
Absolutely. Yeah. Next question. Does the panel agree that without digitization, it will be impossible to have resilience in supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, if you talk about one of the gap which security fraternity always have was the data and then the analysis of that data. I think we just had a wonderful session around tests. I think that's going to help. I don't think without the right data and therefore the digitization, we will have the right indicators and therefore the right resiliency in place. That's going to help. There are so many tools available which helps in developing your BCP plan, your BIA, your different aspect of the BCP and how you test it. So I think this is going to be a quintessential aspect of your resiliency. I have no doubt about it. I think you told about it.
Okay, do we take the next question as well?
Yeah, I think we can take one more question. Yeah.
Talking about percentage of manpower replaced by the AI robo, I think it's too early to talk about. As there are lots of articles and discussions on the various media that while AI is going to kind of replace some of them or some jobs may get replaced, but there will be many more which will get created also. As far as supply chain is concerned, my perspective is that, as Firoze rightly said, the last mile, the integrated supply chain from from the sourcing to warehouses to fulfillment to last mile customer, there are millions of jobs which are going to get created because of supply chain. Just imagine how many trucks are operating in India every single day. How many warehouses are operating? So it is going to happen everywhere. It's Europe, Thorsten shown you those dots which are connected by FSR certified warehouses. That's looking so busy. And there are 80% more than them are not certified. So supply chain is a massive ball game, I think, in terms of the percentage of reduction of humans because of AI robot, very early to kind of predict at this moment. But my personal belief is that it will keep creating more and more jobs. Supply chain is the biggest job creator given any geography on the globe. That's my. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, panel, for nice insights. And please give a big hand to the panel.